Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie. I'm a book-loving, notebook-hoarding reader and writer on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. And this is the Get Literate podcast. On this podcast, we explore the power of leading literate lives. We talk all things books and reading, notebooks and writing, and everything in between to make our lives better. And no matter what better means to you, the pages inside books and notebooks can help us get there. So, each week, we'll mix together books, notebooks, mindful practices, and creativity to cultivate a life we love. Now, grab a notebook and your TBR list, and let's get literate. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Get Literate podcast. It is the last day of the month, which means it's time for a bonus episode. It is time to talk about my monthly literate love, what I've been reading, writing, learning, and loving all month long. Now, in New York, it is turning into a beautiful shift of seasons. Today, as I'm recording this, when I woke up, it was already 50, which is really warm here in New York in the morning. And it's going to be 80 by the afternoon. So it is just this really wonderful spring shifting into that summer vibe kind of feel. June is just about here, which means school starts to wrap up and we think about summer and summer plans. And it's just been a really wonderful time of the year. Now, in thinking of my reading and writing and learning, I've got some fun things to share with you. In terms of my reading, I have done a lot of reading for the podcast. I've got some really fun bookish episodes coming up, and so I've been busy reading books in preparation for those. I've also been honored enough to receive multiple ARC books, advanced reader copies, so that I can read and review them in hopes of getting that book out there to other readers more readily. So I'm not going to share the books that I've read for the podcast, and I'm not going to share all of those ARC books yet either, because those are going to be on the podcast soon because they were fantastic. After I shared the books that are left, I'm going to talk about something that's really been lighting my heart on fire in my writing life, a really fun project that I'm kicking off right now in my learning life, and then something I did not know about my local library. So let's get started with reading. What have I read this month that you won't hear about on the podcast and you won't hear about later in terms of some of the advanced reader copies? Well, I want to start with a middle grade novel that tugged at all the heartstrings. Gracefully Grayson by Amy Polonsky. Now, I've mentioned another novel by Amy on the podcast before, Threads. This was this amazing novel set in two different countries where we learned about one little girl who was pretty much in a sweatshop in a purse factory store in China. She sent a message to help her and tucked it into one of the purses that ended up in America. The other little girl in America found it, and what happens is this beautiful back and forth and threading of stories. Although I'm not going to reveal what happens at the end, I don't think it's going to be what you expect. I adored that book. I have recommended that book to so many young readers. And so I knew that I was just going to love Gracefully Grayson because of that. And I was right. This is a book that just truly embodies the journey of finding yourself inside of yourself, if that makes sense. So it's about Grayson. And Grayson is a middle school student who has been holding on to a really deep secret for a long time. While he is a boy, he feels that his true inner self is a girl. Now, he silences that voice. He packs it all down in his heart under the weight of all of the other emotions he's feeling. Unfortunately, his parents died when he was young, and he's been struggling to find his place in the world without them. Yes, his aunt and uncle are taking care of him quite well, but it's just not the same. When his grandmother passes away, she leaves him some letters that she saved from his mom. And he's just beyond grateful to have them. And when he reads them, everything just kind of starts to click into place. And Grayson is given the strength from his mom to make some bold moves to just believe in himself and let the real him shine through. And this book is that journey. We see how the power of believing in yourself, along with the support of some important adults in our lives, can make all the difference in the world. It's just a beautiful, full circle, find yourself, love yourself, you're perfect the way you are kind of novel. That's Gracefully Grayson by Amy Polonsky. Now, up next, we're going to take a hard, well, I was going to say a hard right turn in terms of genre, but there definitely are some common threads woven throughout them. I've talked about this book on social media. I've mentioned it, I believe, here on the podcast before, and it's a book that I highlighted inside of my Get Literate community for our word of the month this month. Stay tuned for that tomorrow. Now, this book is called How to Heal Yourself When No One Else Can by Amy B. Scher. Now, if I could review this book in just one word, here's what it would be: hope. It's hope. Amy Scher has given readers hope for the kind of healing that is possible inside of their own bodies, even when all of the other approaches, all of the other conventional methods have failed. And in fact, I would say especially when all of those other approaches have failed. Now, her ideas are based on her own personal journey of healing. She had a very late stage and severe form of Lyme disease that pretty much just interrupted and completely halted her life. Took her years to heal herself with the help of what she has learned from the medical community and the Eastern community and her trips overseas, but she did it. And so this book captures that personal healing journey. It's got a very strong personal memoir type of thread, but it is supported with and by professional literature and science, which I love. But here's the thing. The ideas presented inside are definitely outside of conventional healing wisdom. But honestly, that's why I liked it. As I was reading it, I couldn't help but think, why didn't I know this? Why don't we know this about how our bodies work? Why aren't we taught this? Why are we not taught to think about the inner workings in terms of energy and what's going on in our systems, but instead we just pop Tylenol or do whatever a doctor says to help from the outside? What about the inside? Now, I will say there are a lot of ideas that are new to me, right? But I'm here for it. I'm here for anything that will help me live a better life. And what I liked is that Amy says, listen, I know a lot of what I'm saying is outside of the norm. So take what feels good and leave what doesn't. That's it. All of the ideas she presents in here are things that you can do for yourself on a daily basis that don't require money. They just require a little bit of time. And if you are picking up a book called How to Heal Yourself When No One Else Can, you are worth giving every possible thing a shot. This book will give you an entirely new perspective about health, about wellness, about healing. And I, for one, am just incredibly grateful for what I'm calling literally power inside the pages. Because now that you know this, you can't help but look at yourself a little bit differently and feel like you have more control than you think. I mean, it does say how to heal yourself when no one else can. And armed with that knowledge, it's just fascinating to think about what you might be able to do. So that's How to Heal Yourself When No One Else Can by Amy B. Scher. Now, next up is the one ARC advanced reader copy that I am going to share with you because, at least as of today, as I'm recording this, it's its book birthday. I couldn't get that out. So The Muse Next Door by J.D. Sparrow is out today, May 30th. I'm recording this really close so I could get all the books in that I read in May. Now, J.D. has written multiple books that I've loved, and she's even been on the podcast talking about hyper local books that are set in actual real places that make use of those real places, real landmarks, real everything in order to enhance the experience. If you don't know the area, then her books just have a really strong sense of place. But if you do know the area, they not only have a strong sense of place, but you just feel like you are plopped down inside of them. So I could not wait to get my hands on The Muse Next Door. So this book, I devoured this. I couldn't put it down because I needed to know what was going to happen between Willow and Austen. So Willow is a newly divorced, very unexpectedly newly divorced gallery owner trying desperately to rebuild her life and rekindle the spark that she has lost. Austen is this rugged, handsome coffee shop owner next door to the gallery. It's set on Bainbridge Island, and both of them have kind of escaped there to try to get a handle on their lives and make a new start. But there are lots of misunderstandings, lots of false starts and stops, a few secrets, and a whole lot of self-doubt that plagues them both. And because this is told in alternating chapters, you get to see the perspective of each, and you kind of just want to shake the book a little bit and wish that you could tell the other what the other was thinking. They're two very relatable characters, and they are supported by some close friends who also have their secret struggles too. So this is a story about Willow and Austen, but there also are other stories in there that I am sure readers will be able to relate to. I loved it. I love books like this where I get to see the characters go on this transformation, even if there's a predictable romance-ish kind of thing in there too. I loved it. I loved that aspect. I love the alternating chapters. And now I am adding Bainbridge Island to my bookish bucket list because of that strong sense of place that I felt while reading this book. So if that sounds like something you'd like to, definitely go pick up The Muse Next Door by J.D. Sparrow. Now, up next is another middle grade book. You know, I try to balance my adult and children's literature reading life about 50-50, and I've been tipping the scales in 2023 in favor of adult literature, which is unlike me. So I've been trying to rack up the middle grade and YA novels that I have been reading, and Where the Watermelons Grow by Cindy Baldwin is one of them. Now, I picked up this book because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I've been trying to read and collect books on mental health themes and issues so that I can add them to my bibliotherapy book lists. So Where the Watermelons Grow was on my radar because of that. And now Della Kelly, the main character in this book, and her family have a permanent place in my heart. Della is a 12-year-old girl who is just forced to grow up too soon as a result of her mother's mental illness. She is just full of self-blame, and she thinks that she's responsible for her mother's schizophrenia because it arrived immediately after she was born. The hormones, the process, it just triggered something in her mother, and Della cannot help but hang on to that guilt and that shame and that fear. Now, her mother did get help, and her mother was doing just fine, but unfortunately, she does relapse. And Della tries everything that she can do to help. She tries to be the perfect daughter. She tries to be the perfect babysitter and take care of her little sister. She tries to do things around the house so that her mother can rest, but it just doesn't stop the chain of events that end up with her mother in the mental hospital again. Now, Della falls into a deep despair that is really hard for her to recover from, and she's desperate for help. She goes to the bee lady for what she calls magic honey. She has grown up hearing these stories of this magic honey and thought, maybe that magic honey could help my mom. And in fact, the bee lady says, I can't help your mom, but I may be able to help you. And so she gives her a magic honey from the bee lady that will help her in a way that you might not expect, but will help her see the strength and the love and the enoughness that is deep inside her and has been and will continue to hold her up. Oh, it's a beautiful, precious, and I would say very needed middle grade novel. I just loved it. That's Where the Watermelons Grow by Cindy Baldwin. Now, my last book I want to share with you is a book that I have written a bit more extensively about on my blog at alitlife.com. So I am part of the WOW Women of Writing blog tour for multiple books. And this month, I am doing a little blog hop for the book called Down a Bad Road by Regina Butner. Okay, so this book, speaking of hyperlocal books, this book is set very close to me. It is set in upstate New York, in places that are real, that I can see and I can reference, or at least I can imagine. So I knew that I was going to be sucked into this strong sense of place. And honestly, I did not see this book coming. Now, when I read a book, I expect to like it. I expect to like and relate to the characters. I expect to learn from their lives so that I can make a better sense of my own. But I did not expect the conflicted feelings I had towards these characters. Feelings that really demanded I read the book in as little time as possible because I had to know what happened. Now, in the book, we meet Willow and Burley. Willow is an unhappily married woman, and Burley is a single man wondering what's next for his life. After a chance encounter on the soccer field, Willow sets her sights on Burley to come to her rescue and sweep her into the romance she never had with her husband, something he's only at first hesitant to do. Now, Willow dazzles him with provocative clothing and frosted pink lipstick and sequined Uggs, and Burley caves. He starts to imagine what a new life for the two of them could look like. But that life is suddenly very complicated with the arrival of a long-lost classmate of Burley's with a very big secret. But trust me, you do not see that complication coming until you are left gripping the last page of the book, shouting, "No!" as you realize the saga has ended, which is exactly what I did sitting in the pickup line, waiting for my kids, trying to get to the end of this book. These were characters I wanted to hate. A spiteful woman who's purposely cheating on her husband and conniving her way to whatever she wants, and a man who's willingly accepting that challenge. But the author so artfully develops the characters over time, revealing their inner struggles, their regrets, their pain, and almost endearing them to me, but almost. So these characters went down a bad road, and I'll say both figuratively and literally. And reader, you are going to feel both journeys. If you want to read a book with characters you will love to hate, with a strong sense of place and with a gut punch of an ending, then Down a Bad Road by Regina Butner is for you. And on that note, those are the books that I am sharing with you that I have read in May that you won't see anywhere else quite yet. Not bad, right? So let's move on to writing, because I am really excited to talk to you about what I have been doing in my writing life. You know I love writing. You know I love notebooks. I have my personal notebooking and my morning pages, but I also have been trying to do some more writing. And by writing, I mean writing more articles to share online, writing my third book on bibliotherapy and restorative reading and writing for wellness. I've got a lot of really fun writing projects up in the air, but I needed something to rein me in to actually get me to write them. And it's one thing to think about them, but it's a whole nother to sit your bottom down in the chair and actually write about them. And so I want to share with you something that I've joined, something that I've done that is helping. Do you know about Firefly Creative Writing? This is a beautiful little writing nook of the web started by Chris Fraser out of Canada. Now, I've seen Firefly Creative Writing here and there. I've seen some of their workshops. I've seen some of their videos and the beautiful emails that Chris puts out. And I have just been smitten with what they do. I love everything about the company, from their mission to their philosophy, to the courses they offer, to the coaching they offer, and what I've recently joined, their morning coffee sessions. It's their morning coffee club, and it meets Monday through Friday, every weekday of the week from 9 to 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. How does it work? Well, you click on the Zoom link, you log in at 9, and this wonderful writing facilitator is there to greet you and say hello with something creative. So there's usually some sort of check-in that is a fun prompt. One of them recently was, check in and let us know which one of your senses is really feeling alive this morning, and what is it feeling? Another one was, what's a small win that you've had in the last 24 hours? And another creative one was, let's describe our moods as animals in a particular stage of life, like a baby turtle just trying to crawl and get through the day. Those check-ins are fun, they're creative, they get you thinking, and then the facilitator offers a prompt. Sometimes that prompt is based on the fun check-in, sometimes it's not, but it is usually some sort of creative and reflective writing prompt. And then at 9:05, pretty much on the dot, she sends us off to write. We leave our Zoom open. About half of us have the screens on and about half of us have the screens off, and you write. You write for about 20, 25 minutes. And then at the end, the facilitator comes back on, helps you kind of shake your head from your writing and debrief a little bit, and then sends you on your way. And the great part is that you don't have to write that creative prompt, but it does spark your thinking a bit. And so I've been using it as check-ins to log in. And when it's time to write, I go to my writing project that I've been working on. Because if I can dedicate 25 minutes to writing every single day, or at least when I can attend at 9 a.m. in the morning, I'm going to make a lot more progress than without it. And so I have been loving my morning coffee sessions. I could put this in the writing category. I could also put it in the loving category, but it's definitely lighting my writing heart on fire, and it's helping me get the writing projects that I want to get done. It is definitely helping me get them done. So if that sounds like something you might like, especially as we move into the summer months, I urge you to go online, check out fireflycreativewriting.com, find the morning coffee sessions, browse the amazing workshops, take a look at some of the coaching, and see if you can bring some of your zest for writing to life this summer by teaming up with the creative writers at Firefly. Oh, it's a wonderful little spot. I wish I lived closer so I could attend some of their live events. Now, up next, what am I learning? I have been fairly obsessed with this new thing I have found called letterboxing. Now, it's new to me. It is not new to everybody else. It is not new to the world. It's been around for a really long time, but I just found out about it. If you don't know what letterboxing is, I want you to think about geocaching. Do you know what that is? Were you involved in that craze like I was, where you grab your kids and you use the app and you go to all these locations locally and you try to hunt around and find this little teeny tiny box. And when you open it, there's something there. There's a little kind of gift or treat or token. And the idea is that you take that, what was left for you, and then you leave something else for the next person to find. And you kind of keep track of all of the things that you found. And it's just a fun time because you're connecting with other people, especially if you're doing it with friends or with your kids. And it's just a lot of fun to find those boxes and see what's inside and leave something for the next person. Letterboxing is a lot like that, but instead of tokens, there are stamps. This is where the literate love comes in strong and what I have been learning this week. So in letterboxing, you have a little notebook. You just get a little notebook and you go online. There are letterboxing sites with so many opportunities online. Just Google letterboxing. I promise you'll find it. You get a notebook and you travel to these locations where there are letterboxes. And when you open up that box, instead of finding a little token to take with you and leave, you're going to find a stamp pad and a cool stamp. That's it. But you open up your notebook and you stamp the stamp you just found into your notebook, and you just go around to really cool places and see how many stamps you can find. Now, if that doesn't sound exciting for you, I get it. I loved that because of the stamping aspect. I loved to stamp with my kids. I love the alphabet stamps. So the thought of seeing old school letterbox stamps or old school typewriter stamps or whatever, it's just something that I personally feel like would be fun. So I went online to try to find some spots in my county that I could just go around to and try this out. And I actually found that my particular county in upstate New York has a pretty official letterboxing project built by the historians in the county. It's a historians challenge, and it's got a passport and everything. And in the passport, it's information about letterboxing, it's information about the history of our county. And then they send us off to 12 different locations around the county to find, to learn from, and to grab the letterbox and put in the stamp. So there's a space in your passport for the stamp, the date you completed it, and then there's other things like some fun facts or some clues to where you're going to find the letterbox. And so you're not just going around town trying to find random stamps to put in your notebook. You're going around town learning a lot of history in the process. And for this passport that I'm looking at, I have only been to a couple of these places, and I have lived here my whole life. So I am hoping to convince one of my children to do this project with me, to just take some time this summer to drive around to these places we haven't been. Some are museums, some are local city halls, some are old churches, some are even old libraries and inns and farms. You go, you explore, you learn, you find the clues, you find the stamp, and you keep moving on. So it's just this wonderful project that gets you a little bit more invested in your local community. And if you like me and you like stamps, it's just icing on the cake. Now, you don't need anything formal like this. Like I said, you could just do your own notebook, but I love that I found my county actually did something that is planned out and thoughtful. And if you did them in order, the information that you would get about the area that we live in, it's different, right? It's something different to do this summer that I definitely am looking forward to. I'll put a link to the letterboxing in my county in the show notes, but you never know. You might have one in your local area too, and just not know that such a project exists. Now we are on to loving. I told you that I would tell you something that I did not know about my local library, and maybe you don't know it about your local library too. I had no idea that I could go on my library's website and I could request a book that they don't physically have in their collection, and they buy it for the library. I didn't know you could do that. I knew that I could search for other local libraries that had the book I wanted, and they could bring it to me on an interlibrary loan, which I do all the time. But I didn't know that I could go to my library and say, hey, this is a book I want. This is why I think it would be a good book for the collection, and then send it off. I learned about this from Zibby Books. I love all things Zibby Owens. Her podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books, is one of my favorite. Zibby Books is putting out 12 novels a year that I absolutely adore. And as an ambassador for them, I learned that I could do this at my local library. I didn't quite believe it. I thought, how do I not know about that? But sure enough, a quick search on my library's website, and I found the link. And so I requested a particular book with just some really basic details about the book. I can't even remember if they asked why I wanted it, although I may have put that in the comments. And not too long later, I received a notification that said, hey, your book's here and it's waiting for you on the hold shelf. So what a cool thing. Number one, we can get books that we want in our actual local libraries and maybe not do it on an interlibrary loan. But it's also another way to support the authors you love. If you search for a book that you want at your local library, and it's not there, they're not going to know there's a demand for it or if it's a book worth reading unless we tell them. And so I feel like this is this little known way that we can support authors. Libraries tend to always have the big books, the new books, the up and coming books. But what about the smaller authors, the indie authors, the authors that might not get as much press, but definitely deserve the same accolades? We can purchase their book and support them, but now we can also request that our library purchases the book and support them too. So I feel like it's this little bookish secret as a way that we could support the writing community and our reader community in a very easy way that just takes about 3 minutes or less. And so that's what I've been doing. I have been searching for books that I want. I've been trying to highlight different books and different voices and just letting my library know that they're there and they're books that I would love to borrow. So I challenge you this week to go to your local library's website and find that form. I actually went to a couple of other libraries to see if they had the form too. And every library I tested this out on had a form or an email address somewhere where you could submit your request. So I challenge you to go to your local library's website, find the form, find the email address, find the information, and then go ahead and support an author by requesting a book that you love or you want to read, and you know the author would really appreciate that recommendation. If it's not there at your library, go ahead and make the ask. You're helping your reading life and you're helping out the writer at the same time. So that's it for me and my literate life in May. Some great books that I've read, a really fantastic writing journey that I'm on with Firefly Creative Writing, some fun letterboxing, and a little known fact about requesting books at the local library. Now, you know that I would love to know what you have been reading, writing, learning, and loving in the month of May. So go ahead and find the show notes online at litlife.com and leave me some literate love in the comments, or head on social media. You can go to pretty much any platform and find me at @AfinitoLit and let me know what you're reading, writing, learning, and loving there in the comments of the social media post for this podcast. Now, if you want some more literate love, on June 1st, I will be revealing what my one word is for my Patreon community. That's the group of readers and writers who want a little bit more. Every week, I offer a bonus episode with bonus content. And each month, I create my most favorite thing in the world, which is a bibliotherapy book calendar. It's a calendar that has one book recommendation for every day on the month based on our theme. And this month, I'm letting you take a sneak peek. So if you want to see what my bibliotherapy book calendar looks like for June, you want to find out what my one word is, and then grab all of those book recommendations, you can head to litlife.com to find that book calendar. And I'm also putting it in the show notes here, as well as in my social media bio. I'd love for you to take a peek at it and see what you think. And then if you like it, you can join my Patreon community. It's just $5 a month, and you can listen to me explain and get excited about all of those books on the calendar too. Plus, we have a book club that meets and some other live events planned, especially some virtual reading retreats this summer. So I'd love to see you there. You can find all of that information in the show notes or on my website, alitlife.com. So don't forget to share your literate love with me so that I can bring some more of it into my life too. I hope you had a wonderful May. You're looking forward to a really wonderful June. And thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. And if you want more, you might like to join my Patreon community. There, you'll find additional inspiration for your reading and writing lives, like bonus podcast episodes, book calendars, monthly book clubs, notebooking challenges, live events, giveaways, and much more. It's only $5 a month, and you get instant access to all the previous content too. You can learn more at getliterate.co. But one more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish and no bookish community too. Thanks so much for listening.